Bear with me for a second as I do something a little different. It is impossible to analyze any piece of media without leaving loud, bold pieces of yourself in that analysis. Art is explicitly subjective, yet even in the most corporate pieces of media ever assembled, there remain undoubtedly bits and pieces of the creator itself in every aspect of its composition. A writer who's being strictly overseen will still only be able to use tone and language that is molded by their history. A musician, whether they're making a jingle or a concept album, is still going to gravitate towards tunings, songwriting ideas, and production choices that they either consciously or unconsciously associate with themselves as an artist, as a creator. This could just be the Catholic childhood in me speaking, but it was pretty apparent to me upon a watch of Final Destination that this was a movie, and by extension a series, about survivor's guilt. Despite the series' trademarks and the rather unserious nature that all long-running horror series gravitate towards, the emotion at the core of Final Destination, the movie, is a really poignant one. It's a feeling that invades a lot of our waking moments in the aftermath of a devastating tragedy. It's a feeling that forces us to constantly be looking for ways to verify that we are morally in the clear for surviving something that we know others didn't. Whether it's something mortal like a car or plane crash or a disease, or even something far more mundane like the unconscious comparison and perhaps realization of privilege that one person inhabits when looking at their peers. We need to reaffirm to ourselves that we are okay for simply being around in place of that person. We feel a need to justify to ourselves not only the emotions that we're running through, but simply the fact that we are still here. It's heavily irrational, but it's powerful. I've felt this explicitly, personally, in the sort of textbook way. I've watched people I love leave this earth far too soon, and in the aftermath of it, there really is something strong, unconscious, and completely pervasive that invades your thoughts and shapes the way that you see the world after something like that. You feel the need to be thankful, but also repentant that it was them instead of you. This is the manifestation of death that lurks within the Final Destination franchise, whether its creators had intended it that way, or whether I just left a big piece of myself on the table for you in my analysis. It's truly how I felt, and one of the only things that I could think of after viewing the first movie. This supernatural entity of death, it mocks the survivors, it beckons them to further connect pieces of a puzzle that others who weren't there insist can't possibly be there. In this way, it drives them insane. When does it drive them insane? Solely when dealing with the material fact of a tragic event. The villain in Final Destination is our own irrational minds. Again, this could be completely off. It seems really obvious to me, and I kind of worry I might not be breaking any new ground here, but it was really, really present to me as a theme. Maybe that's just a piece of myself, and if you react to it, you'll be leaving a piece of yourself for the next person to see, and so on and so on. I invite you then to join me in leaving a combined piece of ourselves in this YouTube video. And that piece, for some reason, really wants to watch the funny-ass Rube Goldberg death scenes. I'm serious. I'm going to talk about Final Destination, so go watch the first movie, pause this, I will be here when you get back. I'm going to be spoiling the crap out of it, and I'm actually not quite sure how to talk about a movie in a way that would fill up a lot of time or even particularly make sense, so it's going to help if you have the context. I'm still kind of new to this, if you can't tell by the channel. Oh, I'll also be spoiling Saw 1, and maybe, like, the rest of the series. The desire to give Final Destination a shot partly came from just sitting around with my family and seeing that the latest entry, Bloodlines, was generally well received by critics and audiences alike. From a cursory glance, the series' reputation plays to me as your sort of run-of-the-mill horror series that's gone on for stupidly long because it's commercially viable. There are too many examples of this kind of franchise to count. It doesn't really matter the medium or the genre, but with horror movies, this is almost like a tradition at this point. I always sort of subconsciously associate Final Destination with a couple other ones that are post Y2K. They could be later stuff like The Conjuring and the whole Warren-verse. A really notable one is Paranormal Activity, and not to mention my all-time favorite, Saw. I love the Saw movies in a way that I can't really describe. When I was a tiny little kid, Saw scared the ever-loving you-know-what out of me, but it wasn't even for any of the particularly Saw-like reasons that you'd think. As I got older, I started to appreciate more the metatextual need to continue upping the stakes and getting more and more mechanically elaborate traps with more and more realistic gore to keep giving the audiences what they want. And you can appreciate that from a sort of sociological perspective on your own. But when I was a little kid, it was really just Billy. It was Billy the Puppet. Billy the Puppet is incredibly good at character design. That when framed, lit, edited, paced correctly, I mean, it really can still make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up solely from its inclusion.
Hello, Amanda.
Saw 1 is a genuinely good movie. Full stop. I really enjoy it. The interactions in the bathroom are really nerve-wracking, and there's a ton of characterization that happens pretty quickly with these characters without even needing to go into the details of their backstory that are relevant for the actions and the mystery of the plot. It's not shocking to me that there are a lot of Saw fans out there who seem to appreciate the series in the same way that I do, who are just... There's just relentless ship edits. Just relentless ship edits. They kind of do. I feel it. You know what? I feel it. I'm not going to make the ship edits, but you should keep making the ship edits. It famously is almost entirely set in that bathroom, which was a creative choice birthed out of budgetary restrictions. I loved Saw 1, but it's not my favorite Saw movie. That would have to go to Saw 7, which makes the daring choice of opening in complete broad daylight, focused on a huge glass box that is seemingly permanently affixed to a shopping mall. 3 people begin the film in a literal love triangle in this public box. The woman at the top lies to both men within seconds of each other. They both agree not to kill each other and instead to let the woman die, which splatters her guts all over the screen through the third dimension. I forgot to mention the movie's name was originally Saw 3D, and then it was Saw the Final Chapter, and now it's just Saw 7. It cannot be overstated just how jarring this movie is. It is, again, presumably midday at a very popular shopping mall. It is broad daylight. You might be wondering who would set up such a thing. You might be wondering, as everybody who's ever watched the movie has, how did they not get caught? Was it the dude from Saw 1? Terminal brain cancer patient who got up off the floor to reveal that he was the mastermind? Was it him? If you didn't watch any of the intermediate 6 movies, you probably just are like, what the fuck? Doesn't this guy have terminal brain cancer? How would they possibly get away with it? Who built the puppet? Did no one question the sudden addition of a giant glass box in the middle of a densely populated shopping mall with a sheet draped over it? People were just like, damn, I guess the Mars Volta are putting out a new album. Is there permits involved in any of this? Did the owner of the shop, did like Simon have to be notified? Would security or cops not see literally any part of this construction? Well, they probably disguised it as something else. And then, and that was the whole, It's fucking clear. It's clear glass. It's transparent. The real answer is that none of it matters. Like, none of it matters at all. It shouldn't matter in a Saw movie. Saw 1 and the more sort of grappling moments later in the series, it doesn't matter. But the movies try to make it matter in the absolute fucking funniest ways possible. This is the core of why I love Saw. I can throw on any of the movies and get lost in laughter and fist pumping and hell yeah moments, exploring crater-sized potholes and just trying to make sense of the ways that directors over the course of the series retroactively fucked with the canon to such a degree that somebody who's brand new and even watches through all of them would probably have no idea what the fuck is going on unless being explicitly told. And even then, there's going to be a lot of questions, but brand new questions that are worthy of fun hypothetical discussion. I hope I've encouraged you to watch them, because 1 is genuinely great, 2 is serviceable, 3 starts to lag until the end, where it just travels now into the... There is one event that happens at the end of 3 that will further plunge the entire series into the cokehead zone, and it will not return from that place for like 5 more movies. And then from that point on, you're in for the best ride of your whole life. Speaking of rides, I want to ride the roller coaster. I really do. Please, send me a ticket for the roller coaster. I, like many others, love following this series for the crazy plot twists. However, you could see from a studio executive's perspective how this could perhaps be a bit off-putting to people who are looking to get into the series. You could maybe see how a refresh would benefit the series on the whole. And they did that. Not with the last one that everyone likes, not with the kind of canon one before that not many people seem to like at all, but with this weird movie right in the middle, starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. It's this strange spin-off entry that is technically in the canon. Like, I'm fairly positive that Jigsaw as John Kramer still exists in this world, but we're solely dealing with a copycat. So it's a spin-off in that we're not really concerned with anything that John Kramer's doing, but as far as the concept of a copycat killer, I think that has come up 3 separate times over the course of the movies before that. Spiral, I remember being really excited to watch it and watching it with some of my friends that I've roped into caring about this series as well, and it doesn't really do anything well. It's not campy enough that canon freaks like myself will still get behind it. It's not really gory at all, so the people who are looking to sit in the splat zone with every new Saw movie aren't really going to get a ton out of it. I think there are 1 or 2 that are somewhat gory, but I mean, Saw movies normally take a long time to get to the fun stuff, but the Spiral in particular felt really brutal with that. The thing is, it really wasn't scary at all. And if you know anything about Saw, I bet you're probably thinking, like, no shit, they haven't been scary since probably the first movie and attemptedly the second movie. Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you're at Saw 7 and there's clips of Chester Bennington playing a skinhead getting his back and arms and head ripped off, then you're not really trying to be that scary anymore. But it's like, even for this movie, which I think might have been attempting to do that, it just failed. In particular, the one classically chilling element that exists from the first movie, even through all of the ridiculous shit that the series would get into, is Tobin Bell's performance. Tobin Bell has what feels like 2 words of dialogue in the first movie, and then as soon as he had to become a main player, he said, okay, I'm going to take this series and carry it on my fucking back for the next decade. You really don't have Saw 1 being as sinister and effective as it is, and you really don't have the hallmarks of Saw as a franchise for the next decade without the puppet and Tobin Bell's performance. Period. The combination of those two, even when the movie is being its most ridiculous, is something that really can make your hair still stand up.
Heed my warning, Officer Rick. Their lives hang in the balance of your obsession.
If there's two things that Saw has become known for, it's plot twists that just completely screw up the canon in so many ways that it's really entertaining in and of itself, and it's Tobin Bell and his voice and his delivery. Okay, there's also the morality question about like whether or not he actually kills people, and there's the giant morality question and the fairness of Jigsaw and whether or not he actually kills people or not, or as he says, he just puts people in the position where they are forced to save themselves, but doesn't that actually constitute murder? And this was a really big question around the release of the original series that the series then actively toyed with by having not one, not two of his apprentices get in trouble and have Tobin Bell yell at them because they were just like killing people straight up. They weren't giving people the opportunity to leave. But even that, when it comes to things that are supposed to actually be playing into Jigsaw's MO, like the original John Kramer, even in that clip I just showed you of the TV with Billy and the detective with Rig, like the whole reason that Rig is in that trap at that time and why he goes through a game is because he has an obsession of wanting to save everybody.
Will you learn how to let go and truly save them?
Like, at least in Saw 3, I think his name is Jeff. Jeff's obsession is that he wants to kill the person who killed his daughter. And, like, yeah, murder is bad, so, like, you know, appreciate your life, dummy. But, like he wants to save everybody. And no, he's not a detective, he's a cop. If you're a cop, isn't that the most noble way to perform your job possible? All that is to say that I love these movies with every piece of me. And Saw 10 was no exception. That's why they pay me the big buck. Making Jigsaw the unquestioned protagonist was a genius move, but it was one that was going to require that they then write the most comically evil person of all time to put in a trap, which they did, and it's glorious. It's what was this video about again? Oh yeah. Cut to a few weeks ago, and I'm seeing the reception for Final Destination Bloodlines, and it dawns on me that I've never actually seen any of the movies straight through. I distinctly remember seeing the roller coaster one, partially because I think older members of my family that I was close to were the right age to be at the movie theater, throwing down to a Final Destination, throwing down to a horror flick when that one was being released. But also partly because it's regularly still cited to me as a reason that people I know won't get on roller coasters. Just grow up. Motherfuckers will really not get on a roller coaster, but they'll go 165 on the way back from the theme park. I know where you should be scared of going upside down, little bro. I got a lot of work done one work day recently and then just said, yeah, fuck it. I guess I'll start from the beginning. Somehow, what initially struck me is that I could immediately tell that this movie was made before September 11th, 2001, without even looking at the release date. The entire premise of Final Destination, along with a few of the key people that worked on it, all descend from the X-Files. You can really still kind of feel that in the movie itself, in my opinion. Not only because we're focused for about half the movie on a pair of stoic yet charming FBI agents trying to get to the bottom of a supernatural conspiracy, but also because the movie doesn't necessarily feel like it's reaching for horror too frequently. At least not horror as we've come to know it in the last decade or two. I'm sure it got a great deal more graphic than it would have been on TV. At least cable TV. I mean, The Sopranos was 99. This shit would have flown on HBO. Devon Sawa plays a kid that's going on an end-of-high-school trip to Paris with his classmates and teachers. Upon arriving at the airport, he starts to feel strange about the prospects of his trip in very funny ways.
Your birthday is the same as your departure time.
Maybe you don't even know that Final Destination is a horror movie, let alone know the concept of the film. And you're just not entirely convinced that this is actually going to end poorly for Devon Sawa. Well, the father's dialogue will leave you very little room for doubt.
Senior trip with your friends in Paris, 10 days in the springtime. Live it up, Alex. You got your whole life ahead of you.
Ah, son. I can't believe you're going to have so much fun during the plot of this movie. Our main character's name is Alex Browning, which is very easy to forget as it feels just generally unimportant. Things don't really happen because of Alex or any of the aspects of his character. They happen to Alex. The script is mostly concerned with the chaotic nature and the conspiracy of why the events are happening in the first place. Understandably so. It doesn't really take away that Alex is just not a great lead character at all, as written or as performed. It makes a lot of sense to really be focusing on the mystery for a paranormal investigative serial. The only names that really stuck with me are Ali Larter's character Clear Rivers and Chad Denala's character Todd. Clear stuck with me because she's given by far the most personality of any of the main cast here, in that she's given any that doesn't directly play into the forthcoming events of the plot. Also, her name is Clear Rivers. Not Claire. Clear. That's just a memorable name. The reason I remember Todd is because his actor gives far and away the most entertaining performance of the whole movie, and he's barely in it. Alex and his classmates all board the plane, and they're already starting to talk about stuff that you would think that high school seniors would talk about if you were a much older adult man writing them. We've already also seen a couple moments of just absolutely baffling line delivery and mixing choices.
Did you, really think we're gonna titty fuck him over Greenland?
I'm sorry? What do you think we're gonna do?
Really think we're gonna titty fuck him over Greenland?
Speak up, Alex, I cannot hear you. Alex's strange vibes are justified when the plane takes off, experiences some turbulence, but then we get faked out, it experiences more turbulence, everybody starts to panic, oxygen masks deploy, the sides of the plane are ripped off, and Alex's classmates sucked through them. Eventually, walls of fire completely engulf the plane, and it's clear that no one will survive. Wham! Alex wakes up. It's about 5 minutes prior to all of that happening, and Alex does not take this well. A bully named Carter, doing what any peer, friend, or bully alike would do realistically in this situation, sees his classmate undergoing a episode of severe, obvious, very plainly apparent mental anguish, and decides to turn around and beat the shit out of him. His friend Todd goes to check on him. A couple people just leave. They're all escorted off the plane and told that they will not be allowed back on. They're bummed about this, but surprise, surprise. The FBI unsurprisingly roll up to question just what a wacky situation we've got going on here. And I know I made a joke about this being made in a pre-9/11 world, but if you're finding it a bit hard to suspend your disbelief that a high school senior who expressed a knowledge that a plane was going to explode very loudly, and then, you know, the plane actually exploded. If you're finding it hard to believe that that character would not be immediately detained and then held for the runtime of the film, it's only going to get harder to believe. But whatever, the movie has to happen, right? Alex becomes inextricably linked with the only other people to walk off the plane. Despite a pervasive initial unease at each other's presence, the group all becomes bonded by their physical location, yes, but also the emotional attachment that they're still living in, the trauma that they're still living in about this event. There is no conversation that the characters have for the rest of the movie that is not painted by this event in one way or another. Todd's father even advises him to stay away from Alex, temporarily at least. It drives apart friends and it bonds previous enemies. It's like there should be a name for this communal, uneasy feeling that survivors of a tragic event have. Maybe it could even encompass some of the guilt that they feel. Nah, see, that's it. I'm the smart video essay guy too. Okay, you know, I know what themes are. I mean, none of the survivor's guilt feels particularly effective dramatically, but it also doesn't feel like the intention. The movie's mostly fixated on setting up the rules of death as a villain. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, though, however. We're only really certain that death is a thing that is doing a big revenge on everybody who cheated it when Alex, in an insanely convoluted way that is supposed to indicate just how supernatural this all is, sees Todd's name in another omen. There's two scenes that are in every Final Destination movie. One of them is what we've already seen, the big introductory main character seeing a premonition of a terrible event about to happen, and the other is this. My friends, we are in for the first Rube Goldberg death scene, baby. Ominous water leaking from a toilet creeps towards Todd's feet throughout the whole scene. And the writers clearly knew by this point, even by the first scene, that they had already struck gold with the formula of this scene. They definitely already knew the value of baiting the audience behind their hands in front of their eyes into guessing which object in this room was eventually going to cause this character's death. Electrocution is faked out, a bad shaving cut is faked out, before it's revealed to be a simple slip and fall that wraps a wire around Todd's neck. Chokey, chokey, choke. Goodbye, Todd. The water oozes back into the wall in a way that I'm sure is just setting up the further personification of death as a villain, but actually appears kind of goofy, in a way that would be more at home in a paranormal investigative serial. But Goofy's not necessarily bad, especially not for a slasher movie. So Todd was found dead of an apparent suicide by hanging, but Alex, breaking into the morgue with Clear, come across the most magnificently campy character in the entire movie. This mortician confirms that Todd didn't commit suicide, but instead was reaching for his neck at the time of his death. This guy, who is again my favorite character in the whole movie, just explains to Alex the concept of the movie. Just shovels it into his plot hole.
I'm his friend, and
I know who you are. It's all part of death's sadistic design.
does that mean if you figure out the design, you can cheat death?
You've already done that by walking off the plane.
Later, Alex meets up with Clear to restate everything that the mortician already told to them, as though it is both the first time that they're hearing it and as though Alex came up with it himself.
Or someone hinting at a design.
It's all part of death's sadistic design.
Now what if you, me, Todd, Carter, Terry, Billy, Mrs. Luton messed up that design for whatever reason? I saw Death's plan.
You've already done that by walking off the plane.
And for some reason, Clear, who is only alive because she believed Alex on a whim that the plane was going to blow up, doesn't believe him here, draws the line here.
I do believe that Todd killed himself.
Cuticle lacerations from pulling at the wire.
If he was pulling at the wire, he wasn't trying to kill himself. It was an accident.
Alex goes on a bit more about how he knows the concept of the movie now. He gets a bit wigged out by the reflection of a bus in the window, and as if by some kind of previously mentioned unconscious psychological force, all the characters who had survived to that point convene on this one location. As the gang delve a bit deeper into their unresolved traumas, Carter's girlfriend Terry declares a freedom from her guilt and a desire to not let the events of the plane explosion ruin her life anymore. And then she steps out into the street. Again, here's where I'll posit this theory, and I don't know whether I'm the smartest, most clever guy on the planet for thinking of this, or if I'm a dumbass and every single fan of this series already knows this is a major theme, but both of the people that have died to this point weren't really too bound emotionally by the effects of the crash, if we're to believe Todd, and it's mostly his dad that's getting, him all bummed out about this sort of thing. And then there's Terry just straight up saying, I'm not gonna let my guilt drive my life anymore. I'm gonna move on with my life. And then
I will not let this plane crash be the most important thing in my life!
I don't know if it holds up through the rest of the movie, but this is a theme, man. I'm a smart boy, I know theme. From here, the movie is firmly rooted in the rules of its own world, and it mostly focuses on Alex, Carter, and Clear figuring out Death's plan and trying to stop it from picking them off one by one. It also begins to ask itself a lot of questions, as any horror movie does, particularly any paranormal movie, or the famous one is time travel. What happens if it just skips one of us? These are not really conclusively answered, but one, they don't have to be if your movie's good, and two, it's the first movie. We don't really know anything about this, and the characters are actively trying to figure it out themselves, so it works. They determined that their teacher, who was super weirded out by Alex's whole premonition of a plane crash thing, is going to be next. Her Rube Goldberg scene is by far the most entertaining in the entire movie. It's like the horror movie equivalent of the satisfaction of one of those weird marble racing courses. It's the OK Go music video. It's too good. I'm not weird for thinking it's good, right? That's like the series' whole appeal, right? Like, I'm not weird. The scene ends with Alex, who knew she was next, investigating the scene and trying to save her, but only realizing that he was standing over his bloody teacher with a knife in his hands. He ditches the scene, and the house explodes like the Universal Studios backlot. In the last moment of something truly analogous to angst-ridden survivor's guilt in the movie, Carter, in one of the realest moments in the movie, angrily responds to an assurance that an unseen paranormal force is plotting his imminent, unavoidable death by deciding he's going to go out on his own terms, and just takes his car and speeds into oncoming traffic, and he eventually ends up parking on train tracks. It's actually a nice bit of characterization when juxtaposed with the realization that he actually does fear whatever's going on and tries to shrug it off as a cool guy facade, only to really express some effective fear in his eyes when he realizes he's walked right into Death's plan. Alex saves him, funny metal shard goes zoom, and Dopey is dead. I haven't really talked about this character much because he's not good at all. The performance is great for what it's given. It's a terrible character, and but I really want his Rangers jersey, that I will say. The big finale is Alex realizing that he miscalculated, and he is not next on Death's list, as they all thought he was. It's actually clear. He goes to save her, as he did Carter not too long ago, and she manages to survive just an insane amount of shit. There's electricity, Mother Nature, explosions, and you have your whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. Alex sacrifices himself for Clear. The FBI agents catch up to and check on him. They were pursuing him because also, oh yeah, he's kind of been a fugitive for the entire movie. Kind of. We'll get to that. And bang, they're all fine. Cut 6 months later, Alex, Carter, and Clear are actually taking a trip to Paris and get there successfully. Once they're there, they share a drink, and they talk about how it's just crazy that they ended up in this situation to begin with, because they never would have spoken to each other if it hadn't been for that tragic event. They all sort of express a desire to want to move on in their life from it, except Alex, who's still fixated on it, and says that there's not really a way to know that they're through the woods yet. And what a shock. Bam! What a delicious film. I'd like 5 more servings. I partly did the introductory spiel about Saw because I think unconsciously I view the two franchises as very similar, both in the time they were released and the space that they occupy in our collective pop culture consciousness. Their reputations as overly long bad taste splat fests that are endurance tests for high school kids that bring their crushes, and with each new generation they get more and more ridiculous and more critically reviled, until all of a sudden they don't. They quickly established a formula that they know we were here for. In Saw, it's the traps. In Final Destination, it's the OK Go music videos. Sure, the way that both of these first movies end, they leave tons of questions that could easily set up the insanely long franchises that they did, but also, you can't bank on that when you're making a new IP, so they're self-contained. They might just be asking questions to get the audience to think about them. What separates the first movies, then, in my view, is that Final Destination 1 is just not very good. I think Saw 1 holds up shockingly well to this day, and is just straight up a good movie. Even if it doesn't quite reach the threshold of great due to some inconsistencies, some sloppiness, some questionable choices in both line delivery and the editing room. It doesn't matter. The sequels would reach true greatness anyway. But in Final Destination 1, these moments where Death himself does the elaborate dance of 1,000 coincidences, it only sort of reaches a dude bro ridiculousness nirvana once, maybe 1.5 times. Saw isn't really a good movie for any of the ways that I would come to like the sequels for either, but the difference is that Final Destination 1, at its core as a standalone movie, is not very good. I don't want to over-romanticize the past that I wasn't really conscious for in an industry that I'm not really that familiar with. But I can at least say that Final Destination feels like a prime example, a relic of a time where movies that got wide releases didn't need to be necessarily like world-conquering, once-in-a-lifetime events just to break even. And that gives it a vibe that is the most appealing part of it. Movie theaters were enjoying their last heyday, as by the very beginning of the next decade, there would be insanely easy ways like Xbox 360 apps and Wii mail order DVDs that just let kids and parents alike just completely trivialize the process of having access to new movies from the comfort of their own home. The faults of Final Destination feel exclusive and unique to this little time in history is what I'm getting at. Aesthetically, the ways Devon Sawa mumbles his lines feel like uniquely Y2K fuck-ups, if that makes any sense. It's easy to see why this period was the death knell of the mid-level movie at the movie theater. It's also easy to see why those types of movies have been really fondly remembered in the decades since. The hit rate only had to be marginal to make your cash back, and if you turned even a somewhat decent profit, especially in a genre like horror where this has happened forever, you could just springboard an entire moment in pop culture. I mean, this still happens to this day. But the movie itself, like I said, is still pretty bad in the moment-to-moment sense. And the unique charm of its badness does not do too much to rescue it. Just as it's easy to see why these types of movies were fondly remembered, it's also just as easy to see why there became like a little content creator micro industry in pointing out all the faults in its logic. The whole CinemaSin thing seems to have aged poorly with people who, know more about movies than I do. It still stands to reason that if a movie is failing in a couple of really obvious fundamental ways, the logic of the movie falling apart makes it a complete non-starter. Sure, the father just dumping exposition into your mouth with the subtlety of a plane explosion might wrap all the way around into being a hilarious period-appropriate trope of the genre, but a moment-to-moment editing decision that baffles the mind will take you right out of fun time land. Some really noticeable and terrible ADR, a quick, nonsensical cut, seemingly to cover up for just really bad line delivery.
Flight 180, are they still in flight? Somewhere? Are they safe?
When I was a kid, like 6 or 7, I used to worry so much about my parents dying.
These are things that don't really let you into the movie's world in a fun, tongue-in-cheek kind of way. So, when you're not having as much fun, realizing that the main character has been speaking openly to the FBI in the parlance of a serial killer, and they just sort of let him run away.
Can you promise me that no one else is going to die?
No, I can't. As long as I'm in here, it's out of my control. I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. Get out of here. What are we going to do? We got nothing to hold him on.
It can turn that CinemaSin into the what the fuck are we even doing here real quick. Look at Saw again. Saw 2 is a perfectly cromulent watch, but it's not as spirited as its predecessor, and it's not as ridiculous as its successors. This is really exacerbated at the beginning of Saw 3. The Survivors Guild thing I brought up was not some attempted pseudo-intellectual waffling. Thinking about it in the time since I've watched it, it really just kept sticking with me that this date night horror Y2K teen thriller flick might actually just be allegory. And I think there's something interesting in seeing these two moments of genesis for a franchise and starting to pick up on those themes to see the way that they would be lampshaded, stuck to religiously, or actively subverted in future movies. Who knows what the themes of this movie are going to resemble in Final Destination 4 when I watch it, when there's an entirely new creative team at the helm. When you're dealing with a series like this, where the cash seems to have no sign of stopping by movie 3. Each subsequent movie is really easy to view as nothing but a cynical money-making venture, partly because, in a lot of senses, they are. But I think the really interesting part comes from watching the creative entity, whoever at that moment is in charge of movie franchise entry number 36, and seeing the ways in that, even in a situation like that, they are unavoidably leaving a piece of themselves in the creative process. It's the way they leave pieces of themselves when they are analyzing the property that they're currently in charge of. The one thing that is as blindingly clear today as it was on release is that Final Destination is a fantastic premise for a horror movie. Even if the first one treated it as an attemptedly gritty thriller that I don't think really succeeds, I get the sense that the sequels will dive further into that dark gray and blue, post 9/11, dirty-looking, capital H horror. I guess the only way to know for sure is to watch them all. Man, 9/11 came up a lot in this video.